people don't want to commit in the dating scene that is now. I don't think people necessarily have the motivation because they're having dating fatigue. And I think they don't want to steer time or energy or resources on, trying to find someone because they feel like they've tried. There's not hope. It's hopeless. And that's why I wrote this book. It might feel hopeless, and I get that. It's harder now than ever. I totally get that, but it's not impossible. The whole point of the book is try to give people the motivation and inspiration to keep on swiping and keep on going on dates. I think everybody should strive to find love, and even though it might feel harder to find love these days, it's so worth it.
Today's guest is Helge Svendsen. He's from Norway and has a rich background in communication. He turned his passions into art and is now a seasoned copywriter with a notable career at JCP Pratt in Oslo. Known for his ability to blend traditional and digital advertising with interactive storytelling, he has now recently taken the leap to become an author, which has caught widespread attention. Helge has written The Little Big Tinder Cookbook, 21 Attempts at Love and Pancakes, which combines his experiences from the world of online dating with culinary creativity. His Tinder journey was more than just about finding love. It was about a playful social experiment of gathering diverse pancake recipes and trying to offer some extra motivation to people feeling tired of today's dating scene. He's a witty guy with great commentary on life as it happens, who enjoys traveling and new experiences. Whether that's moving to the Midwest US, visiting Everest Base Camp in Nepal, doing story slams, or getting lost while driving in Compton. What sets Helge apart is his approach to life's experiences, whether in personal connections or in the solitude of nature. Almost anything can be turned into something playful and fun. And now, dear friends, my conversation with Helge Svendsen. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you.
Well, across the last 10-12 years, a new landscape of apps and digital dating norms and co-time have developed and merged into the zeitgeist. And as a result, a vast amount of new terms, especially for me, have formed and been integrated into the society. This can all seem confusing to many, and it can feel like a jungle that we have not evolved to traverse. And you've written the book, The Small, Large Tinder Cookbook, 21 Attempts at Love and Pancakes. Talk to us about this book and why you wrote it.
Isn't it a fascinating title?
It is. I always giggle when I say the title.
So why I wrote the book? So long story short, but I think this started in 2014, 10 years ago. Tinder came to Norway in 2012, and I was living in Oslo at the time. And I think I must have been one of the first ones getting Tinder. I remember that weekend, me and all my friends downloaded Tinder. It was just this whole, what is this? Because before that, dating online was a bit stigmatized. But I was on Match.com and I was on Sukkel.no. I was on different sites trying it out. So I was kind of a veteran in online dating when Tinder hit the streets in 2012. So me and my friends had a blast with Tinder, and I think everyone had a really good time with Tinder from 2012, the launch. But in 2014, I got this really fatigue out of Tinder. I was really tired. I couldn't find love. I was getting ghosted. All the things that still a problem today with Tinder. I wanted to kind of delete Tinder, but at the same time, I didn't want to get rid of the app completely because I thought it was a really interesting platform. So I wanted to experiment with it and see, okay, so people are using it to find love, but can I use it to find something else? And I have a hypothesis that everybody loves pancakes, which means that everyone has a pancake recipe.
Yeah.
And then I wrote in my bio on Tinder, where you kind of describe yourself a little bit. There I wrote, I'm only here to find the ultimate recipe for pancakes. If you don't have a recipe, please swipe left.
Okay.
And for those who don't know how Tinder works, you get a bunch of profiles up on your phone and you swipe left on those you're not interested in and right on those you want to match with. So if both of you swipe right, then it's a match. And I did this a bit for fun, but just experiment to see where this could take me. I started getting recipes for pancakes and a lot of funny answers. And I did this for a year.
And did people jump straight to the recipes?
Yes.
Oh, really? Okay.
They did, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, and some didn't really think, some thought it was a joke, which is kind of was, but those people that thought it was a joke, I kind of, I cemented myself even more into it. No, I'm only here for the pancake recipes. And this produced a lot of funny conversations and a lot of funny answers. But I think a lot of people understood kind of the sentiment that everybody was a bit tired of Tinder already back then. So that provided me, it was a breath of fresh air.
I can imagine.
Yeah. And then, so people provided me with a lot of different pancake recipes. I think I managed to get around 40 during that year. And then a lot of funny responses.
And did you take note of them or screenshots, or how did you capture those?
Yeah, so what I did is that I screenshotted all the recipes and all the funniest conversations, and I gathered it all in the blog. Yeah, and I launched this blog on the 9th of February 2016, which was the International Pancake Day.
Clever planning.
Yeah, it was a bit random, but it ended up being good fortune. And then I launched the website on Facebook, and here's an experiment I'm doing for about a year. Here are some pancake recipes. Enjoy. And it went viral. TV2, a news media in Norway picked it up. And, I was on the news. It was a really fun time. I was not a C-listed celebrity, or maybe an E-listed celebrity for 24 hours, which was pretty fun. And then I remember the journalist asking me, what do you want to do with all these recipes?
Yeah.
What's the next step? And I thought, I want to write a cookbook. And shortly thereafter, I got into a relationship, not because of the pancakes.
Or Tinder?
It was some friends from friends. And so I forgot all about the project for a while. And when that relationship ended, I was back on the market, and I remembered the Tinder Cookbook project.
You sort of dusted it off the old project,
I was like, I remember I did this. And I started, watching the responses and stuff. And then as I hit the dating market and, went into in and out of relationships and, being single, being not single for the duration of 10 years, I made a lot of experiences in what it's like being single in this new era of online dating. What is love now? Is it the same as it was? And I started, and it kind of, dating online and dating on Tinder, I think a lot of people can kind of feel the sentiment that, you get fatigued, you get tired. You're getting tired of getting ghosted and stuff. And I started writing kind of tips for myself or reflections on what's it like dating now, what's kind of tips I should keep in mind to keep going and give myself motivation to keep on swiping and keep on dating. I did this for 10 years.
And those notes, did you have them privately or on the blog? Or?
I have it on privately.
Okay.
Yeah, just for myself. And then I thought after a while, other people than me should read this. They might get something out of it because they were kind of helping me and giving me a lot of, not comfort, but more like motivation and reminding myself that, there is hope. There's a reason we're doing this. It can be done. You just have to keep the motivation.
Yeah.
So I started writing more and more and longer, chapters dealing with, things that single people either hear or tell themselves. Like, how many times, if you're single, how many times haven't you gotten a friend of you said, oh, I know someone that you're going to match perfectly with.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, so how's the love life going these days? All those questions. So when I wrote the book, I divided all the chapters into those sentences. You find the 6 best recipes from the 40 are in the back of the book. And the rest of the book is about my experiences as a single person. Yeah. And my hope is that this will be kind of a light in the darkness that is dating in 2024.
Yeah, it's definitely a breath of fresh air. Something I guess a lot of us can relate to in one capacity or another. And it's definitely struck a chord with people.
It has.
Yeah. And you mentioned you were at this event on Sunday where there was a wide variety of the people across the age groups. Maybe you could speak to that.
So the book was launched right before the summer this year. And the response has been just, 100% positive. So I was at this market on Saturday and Sunday last weekend where I was standing and selling the book. And it's kind of, it's a recognizable book. It has like a Tinder-ish logo and it's red. It's about love. And it kind of piques people's curiosity. And people had seen it on the news here and there and had seen it on advertisements and stuff. And there was a range, I would say people were around from 19 to like maybe 75 years old, came up and looked at the book, and everybody had a story about love, about dating. And, I remember this, he must have been like 70 years old. This guy came up and said, oh yeah, I was recently divorced and now I'm single, dating. I haven't used online dating apps. But when I was young, we went to dance in barns and that's where we found love. And so I'm just curious what you do now. It's like, what you should read the book. And a lot of people think it's about Tinder. It's really not. It's more about dating and about love. Tinder, I think, became a very descriptive word for what dating is like.
Yeah. It almost describes, I feel, the entire culture since 2012 until now. It's like this umbrella term, so to speak. Yeah. What would you say is one key thing that you learned from this social experiment in writing this book?
One of the key ones is the value of being vulnerable. I think that is one of the key learnings, because what Tinder has done, online dating, all the other apps has done with us, I think it has built some kind of a wall between us, and because you get rejected all the time, and you reject people all the time, and I think everybody that has been using dating apps for the last 10 years can kind of recognize that, they're building up a wall to defend themselves from being hurt again, or, they know they might be ghosted and they have this fatigue. You have maybe like 100 or 1,000 matches waiting for you on the phone. Why would you, start meeting people in real life when what's the point? If you're able to be vulnerable, and by that I mean being honest with your intentions, and being honest about what you want. And, if you want a short-term relationship, then say that. Or if you want a long-term relationship, say it. Be honest with how you feel, someone is making you feel. In our attempt to find love, I think we all have become a little bit of, kind of a people pleaser. We either become, I think if you're dating in 2024, you either end up being a people pleaser or, an iceberg that doesn't let anyone in. That's kind of two different ways to approach love. Being vulnerable, I think, is the ultimate key learning here. That if you dare to be vulnerable with someone, maybe not on a first date, don't start trauma dumping your worst memories. It's not free therapy. But I think being vulnerable is key learning.
We're on to some very interesting topics here. And to dive a little bit deeper, if we consider what people actually write on the different profiles, one of the things that I've seemed to notice is that people put very little information in their dating profiles. And it gets me thinking, if you really want to meet someone and you're hoping that it's going to be a good match, how are people going to figure out whether you would be a good match for them if you don't put out much text or much information about yourself? And another sort of related question is, why are the texts and images that people put out so extremely similar, almost identical, not in terms of like the situation or the type or the kind or the category of picture is almost always identical. It's like someone, like most people picked up some script, like this is how to do it, and then everyone is doing that. And it's quite strange to think about, because it's not like hetero women look at hetero women's profile to pick up tips. And it's the same for men. We don't look at men's profile, if you're a hetero, to figure out like what's a good way to do this. So how do we end up there? Like, what are your thoughts on these things?
I think many men actually share profiles, which I think they do.
Their own or female profiles?
No, they're sharing their own with other guys.
Okay.
I think so, yeah. I remember that from my Tinder career. Friends sharing profiles, what is a good, how is this sentence working out? But at the same time, the ones you should be sharing your profile with, getting tips from, is from the sex you're trying to go on a date with. Like in my case, it was women. And then you should get tips from them. Like, how is this image looking? How is this being decoded? What we're talking about here. Women are even better at sharing profiles, I think.
Okay, so that's what's happening, that men are sharing profiles with men, women are sharing profiles with women, getting tips, and then because of that, we're converging towards like almost like a standard.
You could say that. Take a look at most men's Instagram, and then take a look at most women's Instagram. I think you'll find that women are a lot better at, tidying up their Instagram profile, better at, using angles and light and taking better photos in general, and more, dating profile friendly photos. I think men are not really used to taking pictures of their friends. Most of the time it's, bare-chested, everybody standing together on the beach or something. I think a lot of men has a lot of bad photos because men aren't good at taking photos of each other's. But women are a lot better. They know what's working, and they have a lot more photos they can use on the dating profile. So I think, but there is a scary amount of similarities between men's dating profiles and women's dating profiles.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, talk to me about that.
I think it's fascinating. Yeah. It's kind of like we're in a simulation. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, that's another rabbit hole.
It is a rabbit hole. Men are almost guaranteed to either have a picture of themselves on a mountaintop or holding a dead animal.
Holding a dead animal,
actually. That they've hunted.
Yeah.
And in most cases, it's the fish.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a typical thing?
A typical profile picture on Tinder and a dating apps for men is the fish, holding the fish.
Like a big fish, see what I caught.
Yeah. See what look at how what a man I am.
Yeah,
so I think
I'm providing food.
I'm providing food. I'm providing safety. It's kind of the animalistic, urge to show that I'm a provider. But at the same time, so that's one hypothesis about it. But I think another one is that that's the only time men say, hey, take a picture of me.
Yeah. Maybe that's the more likely explanation, actually.
I think so, yeah. Because look at me, look how proud I am.
Yeah.
I want to document this.
And the same thing if you shoot like an elk or something, you'll be like, oh, wow, come on, take a picture of me.
Yeah. Because, men don't really have the culture of, oh, please take a picture of me now, take a picture of me now.
Yeah. So cute in this outfit tonight. Take a picture.
Oh, I think it looks really good.
Happens.
Please take a picture of me. Yeah. Like, that's kind of, I don't think men dares to be vulnerable enough to ask their male friends, to take a picture of them. But if, being a bit more vulnerable there as well, you get better pictures. Women also following kind of a recipe. Because there is one or two photos. So a lot of women have a photo of themselves in the bunad. That's the classic one.
Yeah.
17th of May with, some friends, holding a champagne glass, preferably out on a balcony. There's sun. That's almost a guarantee. And the other one is they're out and about in the mountain. It's snowy. They're on an after ski of some sort, or in a cabin. But they have that white Swix sweater. You know what I mean? The red Swix across the chest.
I know. I'm just picturing it in my mind now.
Yeah. There's a lot of women that has that. If I were to generalize very much, I think those are kind of things that throughout, my experience.
And the one with the wine glass.
The one with the wine glass, of course, is another one. Yeah. But I think it's interesting to decode one's different people's Tinder profile, because they're trying to communicate something.
All pictures try to communicate something. I mean, you selected those pictures for a reason.
Yeah, and you're setting the pictures like
in a certain order as well.
A certain order, yeah. So why is that your first picture? Why is that your third picture? I think that some people have a reflected opinion about this. Other people don't. They just load up 5 pictures and they think that's, and they write a little bit in their bio, maybe nothing at all. And they think that's it. They don't want to put any effort into it. And they get, surprising lot, not that many great results when it comes to dating. But some people have a more reflected opinion of it. And I think that's because we don't forget that Tinder is a tool. So either you're using Tinder as a tool or Tinder is using you as a tool. You have to either have a reflected opinion on it or it's using you.
Or it could be, I guess, entertainment for some. This sort of like, I got 20 minutes I don't know what to do with those 20 minutes. Let's go in there and get entertained.
Yeah,
I think
of course.
that could be the reason also for a certain group of people.
Yeah, it could be entertainment, you know, waiting for the bus. You get, you know, maybe go through 15 profiles. Validation is another one. You're not really interested in going on dates, but you know, that small dopamine hit you get when you're getting a match, I think that's a huge part of it. That's kind of really what keeps you on Tinder. I think Tinder is built on, and other dating apps are built on the gambling algorithms. That, you know, you just keep playing to win, to get that dopamine hit. That's what keeps you there.
If you're keen on getting a match, why wouldn't you talk about yourself so that people can see whether you would be a good match? Because so many people have virtually no information in their profiles, like virtually none. Maybe a word, like the absolute minimum to just be able to have a profile. And that just strikes me as very strange. I mean, do you have any like reflections on that?
It's better to be rejected for showing 10% of who you are than showing 100% of who you are and not getting any matches.
And then it hits harder.
It hits harder. So I think that's the reason why people don't write anything in their bios. That's the reason why people don't put any effort into their pictures, into their profiles. Because if you were really to, you know, this is me, this is who I am, and then you're getting rejected, you will get rejected either way. The quality of the matches that you're getting would be a lot better if you were a bit more vulnerable in your profile. And that costs. Imagine being totally honest about who you are, what you want, and maybe not 100%, you know, you could be like 80, show 80% of yourself, but, you know, keep the last 20 to be like a mystery when you meet someone. That could be the best solution.
And for the next couple of dates.
Of course. Yeah. It has to do with rejection.
So people are protecting themselves by not putting out too much.
Yeah, I think so.
And it's just it seems that that's been sort of dialed in over time to the extreme, because I don't know how the percentage, but it seems like 70% of profiles have virtually no information. So, you know, this could be anyone. How can I have any impression of this person? It seems. So
and it becomes really superficial because the only information you have is pictures.
Yeah.
And then Tinder is forcing you to make a decision.
Based on the photos.
Based on only the photos. And that kind of wires, that activates only the lust compartment of your brain, or how attracted you feel to the person that you're seeing on the pictures. If you have nothing else to go on, that's, of course, you have to make a decision. But that does something to you. I don't think that is healthy in the end. It can't be healthy.
Yeah, I mean, one way to enforce this from Tinder's side or any other dating app could be that in order to have a profile and be active on this platform, you have to fill in a minimum amount of information, and then raising that threshold would be good for everyone, I think.
That would be great. I think there are other apps. I met my girlfriend on Tinder, so I talk a lot of shit about Tinder, but, you know, Tinder works.
Yeah, it works.
It can work. Showing a bit more of yourself, being a bit more, you know, vulnerable, and being a bit more yourself, showing more personality is only positive. If you can handle being rejected for who you are, which you have to be at some point.
Anyway, yeah. All right, I'm going to read a mind-blowing fact about the current landscape of online dating to you. Perhaps you've heard it before, but it relates especially to Tinder, and it speaks to the gender disparity in user behavior. Data suggests that men swipe right on about 61% of the profiles they see, while women only swipe right on about 4.5% of men's profiles. Huge difference, and this discrepancy results in this very big imbalance between men and women, where men face much lower match rates and often need to swipe through maybe hundreds, or in some cases even thousands of profiles to secure even just one single valid date. Women can be far more selective due to the volume of options that they are facing. So this dynamic leads to this sort of discussion and discussions elsewhere about the efficiency and the fairness of the dating app model and fostering what is actually meaningful connections. So given this backdrop, how do you, as a man, succeed in the modern dating scene when these are the statistics?
Yeah, I think you have to take into consideration that there are a lot of more men on dating apps than there are women.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's for a fact? Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a lot more men. So in terms of the user base, there's a lot more men than there are women. So already there's a competition. It's skewed. So you have to keep that in mind. And the other thing is that both men and women are having a hard time making a choice, because women are getting, thousands of matches or hundreds of matches, and men are getting very little. And as you say, women only swipe on a small percentage. That speaks to, people should put more effort into their profile, to be honest. I think, I remember when I was single, female friends of mine would show me, like, this is what Tinder is like for women. And it was appalling, the standard that men, or the effort that men, the low effort that most men were putting into their profile. It was maybe 3 pictures of holding a dead fish on one guy, and those bathroom selfies taken from here. There is, and men, maybe they don't know any better, but there's a lot of men out there with profiles that has bad photos, and they're not putting any personality into their bio or their photos, and they aren't really showing who they are. They might feel that they are, but if they're feeling that, I'm really putting effort into this, then show your profile to a female friend and get an honest feedback on how does this profile make you feel. Our perfect amount of choices are somewhere between 5 and 8 choices. Any less than that, but there should be more choices. So if you're a man and you only have like 3 or 4 matches after a couple of weeks of swiping, of course that leads you to being frustrated. A woman that has 500 matches, how is she going to make a decision on who she's going to be? She's getting overwhelmed. So even though the numbers are skewed, both men and women are having the same problem.
The paradox of choice that females would then, I would say, face, and you can get into an analysis paralysis. You're not able to select because there's so many profiles to consider and to analyze and figure out like which one should I go for. Also, you have this this possibility of keep on thinking that the grass is always greener on the other side. So I have all these profiles. So if I select like 2 of them, then tomorrow there's going to be new profiles, and maybe those are going to be better than the ones that I selected now. So I better be off just waiting. And then you just keep on waiting and nothing happens.
It can also be that, many men tend to be more aggressive on apps. Like if a woman has, let's say she has 100 matches, a bigger percentage of those matches are going to be a lot more aggressive in terms of trying to get a date or, being just creepy, sending her creepy messages. Only, they're just out for one thing. And just hooking up. And I think that kind of puts a lot of women off. And that kind of, that's why they're kind of just swiping and don't really feel like taking a choice. Women and men are experiencing dating apps in very different ways, but none of those ways are necessarily positive. So I think you have to take that into consideration as well.
Building onto that, contrasting the differences between dating through apps and dating face-to-face, what would you say is the key differences for maybe people who haven't been too much on the new dating scene, or maybe just on the traditional approach? What are the key differences, and how do you think that these differences have influenced the current dating culture that we live in now?
It's a really interesting question. I think what it has done with us is that I think it's never been easier matching with someone and going on a date. It's way easier today than it was, let's say, 10, 15 years ago. But it's never been harder finding love. You're getting bombarded with all these things you should do, all these terms, all these unwritten rules about online dating.
Could you speak to some of those, maybe just try to demystify some of this? Because as you say, there are so many terms. We'll get back to some of those terms later on, but all the norms and how to behave and how to think about things have changed, as you say, so much. of the last couple of decades, and especially the last, let's say, call it 15 years. Would you be able to share some of those, or maybe demystify it?
What is showing too much interest? And so, there's a term called, double texting. So if you have a match on Tinder and you're writing to them and you haven't gotten a response, and you're, let's say they haven't responded to you in 12 hours or, a day or two, and then you write another message. Of course you do. Because, this is a person that you're interested in. You want to, hey, so is everything okay? Like, are we still meeting up on Saturday? But that is double texting. And if the other person isn't that really interested, you have no way of knowing that for sure. But if that person turns out to not be that interested in you, then that double texting would put them off even more. You have no way of knowing this. So you have to kind of follow your gut. How do you build up your Tinder profile? You might think that, showing a lot of skin, showing muscles, or, showing yourself on the beach, looking, kind of flirtatious in the way that you would do in maybe late 90s, early 2000s. That's kind of off-putting, I think. A lot of people do it, but that kind of translates then, this person is only after one thing. It's either validation or just hooking up. I think storytelling is even more important today than it was before. What story are you telling through your photos?
Yeah.
What kind of person are you? Because on dating apps as Tinder, which is really photo-based, you have to be really, you have to think really through what kind of story I'm telling about myself to strangers, about who I am. You have to have a reflected opinion about this, because if you don't, you don't have control of how you're getting validated or evaluated, so to speak. A third one is, how fast should you meet up? Like when you match with someone, that was maybe not an issue before, but where we met people for the first time face to face out and about on the town or in a club or something. Then you kind of hit off chemistry at once. Is this a person I want to, go home with or go on a date with? You kind of feel that chemistry at once. You don't have that chemistry at the same amount when it comes to matching and writing, but you can kind of pick up some similarities in the way that they're writing to you, how the messaging is going back and forth, how fast is it, are they making you laugh, can you kind of, but that depends on, are you a comfortable texter? Not everybody is, but they're great people for that. Yeah. So my point is that the best thing there is to meet up fast. Maybe after like 2 or 3 days of texting or whatever, like meet up within a week to feel that chemistry, because you can have great chemistry texting, but it doesn't necessarily translate until to chemistry.
When you finally meet.
So those are kind of the unwritten rules. And there's no way of knowing all the rules unless you're kind of breaking them. So
or learning from someone who's more experienced, or sort
exactly.
of,
ask those around you for advice. I saw on TikTok there are some funny videos about this group of men. I think it was like 6-7 men having one of the guys texts with a girl out on a big screen, big TV, and they're going through each message, like dating. She wrote back 30 minutes later, and then she wrote this, and she used this smiley, not this smiley, and that's like they're having like this group analysis of the text, and like how should he proceed, what should he write, and it's really funny to watch, but it's kind of illuminating at the same time, because that's what it's like now. How am I coming across? Because I think a lot of men, they're happy with, not using any emojis, only using a thumb up here and there. And kind of that goes into a whole new, like, how should you text to flirt, to not come across as disinterested or aggressive or something like that.
Hitting the sweet spot between the two, eh?
It is a sweet spot. But, so those are kind of the...
texting is definitely a skill, just like almost everything else in life. It's a skill, and
you have to practice.
You have to practice.
And you have to... and you have to remember, how is this going to be interpreted from the other person? You don't have total control over that. You can't have. But you have to have a somewhat reflect a little bit.
Consider your audience.
Consider your audience. And that depends on how well you know them. And that kind of dives into the problem with dating apps. You don't know this person at all. If you're using the wrong emojis from the get-go, the match you might never meet. You might never get a response. So it's difficult.
Could you share some tips or some guidelines in terms of storytelling, as you spoke about, in terms of the pictures and what you're trying to get across? Maybe that could be helpful for some.
The most important thing is that what's the first photo? How is that first photo looking? And I wrote a little bit about this in the book. It should be from the chest up, semi close up, and it should show your eyes. You shouldn't have like sunglasses on. It shouldn't be too far away. There shouldn't be a picture with someone else in it. It has to be you. It has to be semi close up, and it has to show your face, like your full face. No, it doesn't have to be like straight on. It could be a bit from the side. You can look to the side, but it kind of has to be like any profile picture, like from the chest up. If you can have it in like a positive situation, don't use the photo that you're using for work, because that tends to be very professional and very black and white, strict. Use a photo from a vacation or like somewhere
you're in good mood.
We're in good mood. You're smiling. You're having a good time. That's kind of key. If you want to hold a dead fish, sure, you do you. But I'm just saying that based on my experience, I think that I believe those that have more success than others are the ones that have reflected upon how am I presenting myself.
It makes complete sense, but I would imagine that for people listening in, a lot of them might say, okay, for sure, it makes sense to have a more conscious approach of how I tell my story, but where do I start?
So that would be a great way to like start the story. Then you have established, this is how I look. And the next photos should show, this is what I like, or this is who I am. So if you like swimming, or if you like mountain biking or skiing or whatever, that should be like a second photo. Should be like an interest, and the third one, and then the third and fourth and so on. They should show more personality. It doesn't have to be this exact order, but the first one should be, as I mentioned, but the others you can kind of play around. But it should also show your personality. Like if you like to goof around, or if you've done something, if you have like a costume on, give the other person that you're matching with something to ask you about. Create some
icebreakers. Yeah.
Some icebreakers. Create some mystery. Create some icebreakers.
Show different sides and and help people find something to talk to you about.
And then you start swiping through your photos. That should be, I didn't imagine this person was into this. Use a bit of humor. Show your personality. Give people a laugh. And try to show who you are. If you're showing the profile to your friends and they're laughing, that's a good sign.
You're onto something.
You're onto something, yeah.
Let's shift gears a little bit. How do you reckon the shift in dating reflects a change in our underlying values, given that so many view that using Tinder or different dating apps leads to this sort of use and throw away sort of mentality or society? So how are our values shifting now that we're in this new dating scene?
We have a very disposable love society, so to speak, where people are kind of they're ghosting each other. They're not really taking any chances on each other. They're not really making any choices. Like terms like situationships have risen, which is, if those who don't know, is that it's not a relationship where you're not really dating. You're having the relationship, the benefits of a relationship, but you're not really girlfriend, boyfriend, or whatever. You haven't established the relationship.
No expectations of exclusivity. And no long-term planning. You're just having the benefits of companionship and being together, like all the benefits without any of the commitments, basically.
Yeah. It's like having a weekend boyfriend or a weekend girlfriend, not having any of the commitments. It's not someone you can show off to your friends or your family and stuff. But dips into the disposable theme that we're into now. And I think we're way more afraid to commit because everyone has so many choices, and that kind of you're becoming scared of making the wrong choice. What if there's someone better out there? But it's even more worse not making any choice at all.
Yeah,
that's worse than okay, but I feel this about this person. Let's go. Let's try it out. What's the worst that could happen? Try, give love a chance. Millennials and Gen Z because of the dating apps. I think we are one of the most rejected generations in history. That creates a more cold society, but it has become kind of a necessity to survive the dating scene. You're taking a chance on someone with your heart when you're matching with someone and starting that you're interested in, and you're starting to chat, and you're starting to maybe meet up, and go on a couple of dates. You're kind of starting to it's creating emotions in you.
You're getting invested.
You're getting invested, and then all of a sudden they ghost you. They disappear. You're meeting them for 2 weeks, and they just disappear from the face of the earth for no good reason. And you're racking through your brain. Why would they do this? And you're never gonna get a good answer. I think all of these things are creating like a disposable society for us. But I think it's out of necessity. I think we've done it because we're trying to protect ourselves. We're trying to protect our mental health. We're trying to protect our heart. And the consequence of that is the walls, the defense. People aren't willing to get invested because they're not willing to get hurt. But I think if you want true love, if you want a healthy relationship, the first thing you have to accept is that you might get hurt. It might not work out. You're never going to have a real relationship if you can't really invest yourself in it.
There needs to be commitment from both parties, and regardless of which relationship you're in, there's going to be tough times. And you can get through those tough times in most cases if you're willing to work for it, but then you need to be committed, and both needs to be committed.
Both needs to have made a choice, like this is what I want in good times and bad times. It's kind of when you feel that when you're dating in modern times as now, when you're feeling that you might feel committed, but the other person is kind of, the second you're hitting like rocky waters and stuff, they'll just throw you away. Yeah, because there's so many others out there.
Exactly.
They have so many more options.
It's definitely how it feels like looking at society today, that there are too many options leading people to be less committed, meaning that people will jump out of relationships much quicker, and then I guess in some cases never have real connection.
Yeah.
Or because a lot of people who've been together for a long time or maybe married across decades saying that as they move through struggles, the connection and the bond just gets thicker and deeper, and the relationships gets better over time. But if you're never willing to go through those struggles, you will never experience that real bond, because you never get there.
Exactly. And I think, and that's a part of being a human being. That's part of the human experience. Getting to know someone deeply, and getting your lives are being more and more intertwined.
Yeah.
And you have this notion of so there's me, there's them, and there's us.
Yeah.
And in order to build us, we both have to invest time and energy and love into it and commit ourselves to building this house. I remember there was a poem I heard some time ago which speaks to this. I don't remember the poem exactly, but it's something about when two people meet, then one person is a house, another person is a house, and each house looks different. One side is it looks beautiful and have clean floorboards and everything looks great. When another wall might not, might have some mold and it's not really perfect, but it's a house. That person is a house and that person is a house. But they all have flaws. They all have faults. And a healthy relationship is when these two people take the best components from their houses and build a third house that they're going to live in together. And, they accept that they have these other bits and pieces that are not as great, but, they're trying to build a house together with the best parts from each house.
I like that metaphor.
That is a healthy, it comes to dating as well. Like, how willing is this person to build something together with me? What is not, healthy is that if this person insists on having this person move into that house, leave all that out there, they want them into this house. They're not willing to, start building something together. If you find yourself in that kind of position where someone is trying to force you into their life, They're not really trying to
build a life together. Accepting that there are certain parts of yourself that are not optimal. Like you mentioned with some of the walls are not maybe that good. So you are willing to let go of those and to replace them with something that's not coming from you. And that, I would say...
learn from the other person. Maybe they have a better part that you can learn from, or they can learn from you. Building something together is learning from each other.
Absolutely. Growing together and realizing that you don't have all the answers. Everything is not perfect in my house.
It won't be perfect in that our house as well, but at least we're trying to do the best we can and growing together. And I think that's what everyone hopes for. It's kind of hard to start building that house if you never get the chance to meet or both commit.
Yeah.
And people don't want to commit in like the dating scene that is now. I don't think people necessarily have the motivation because they're having dating fatigue, or they're maybe
that's a good term.
Yeah, and I think they don't want to have they don't want to use their time or energy or resources on trying to find someone, because they feel like they've tried. There's not hope. It's hopeless. And that's again why I wrote this book, because it might feel hopeless, and I get that. It is hard. It's harder now than ever. I totally get that. But it's not impossible. The whole point of the book is try to give people the motivation and inspiration to keep on swiping and keep on going on dates. I think everybody should strive to, find love. And even though it's harder, might feel harder at least, to find love these days, it's so worth it.
Yeah, most great things are worth striving for.
It is.
And I think, I want to just quickly circle back to something you mentioned earlier on this, let's call it this trinity of you, the other person, and the two of you together, like us, me, you, and us. And it seems to me that quite a lot of people are very much willing to work on themselves, like individually, but not working on the us part.
Yeah.
Because we're in a very individualistic society where there's a lot of self-actualization and a lot of focus on that, and less focus on the compromise and the us part. Yeah. If you strive to be worthy of something better than you're getting today, one of the best ways to attaining that is to work on yourself so that you actually become worthy. And then you typically do that through self-awareness, self-discovery, and self-development. So there's definitely, I would say, mostly positive things about it. In this society, we tend to think a lot about me, in a lot of contexts. And that can lure us away from thinking about us.
But it's also due to, I think, the fact that society has given people so many more options. So you want to make sure that, you're making the best choices for yourself all the time. That could be quite a straining exercise, but I think that's where it comes from. And that kind of transfers into dating as well. Am I choosing the perfect partner now? Or is there someone better? Because you kind of...
search for perfect.
Yeah, because you're improving yourself, and that's great. That would be not as beneficial for you in trying to find love, because you're trying to optimize the way you're dating, finding the perfect partner. When in the end, finding someone is all about what kind of chemistry am I having, and who am I when I'm with this person, and do I like the person that I am when I'm with them? That's kind of, I think, maybe one of the most important things to feel and ask yourselves.
Good way to put it.
Yeah, not see how is this person fitting into my optimized life.
If you're into self-development, it would definitely be beneficial if the person you meet is also into that. So
very much so.
Grow together at least.
Very much so. And if they're not, the willingness to learn is another key factor. That boils down to values, interests, who you are as a person, which also is very important when it comes to dating. So values are still very important today. But maybe we tend to forget it sometimes.
But that's also something that could be, potentially explicit in a dating app. Like, what are your values? And you could list them up. Like, what are the 5 key ones for you, or the 3 key ones, or something like that?
You can list your love languages.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. One of them has that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's great. If you have dived into love languages and you know your own love language, that's great. I think that's one of the most important things that you can do for yourself in your path to love, so to speak, in your quest for love. Finding out what kind of love languages speaks to you. How are you showing love to other people? How do you want love to be shown to you?
Well, let's say it's Tinder that has this option of choosing love languages. Then it would be great to have one that goes both ways, or two options. So one is like, this is what I typically give. This is the love language that I give, and this is what I like to receive.
Don't sit home and read my book and just, okay, now I'm ready. Read a little bit about the book or someone else's, and then
start the feedback loop.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
We talked about a few of the apps, but let's linger on it a little bit more. I mean, how would you compare Tinder to other apps such as Hinge or Happen or others that are on the scene? And are they all the same, or do they have different purposes and pros and cons? And if so, which ones for what?
The ones I remember is Hinge, Happen, Tinder, and then you have like Raya, which is like the celebrity one, but that's the one I've thought of. But let's do Tinder, Happen, Hinge.
Sure.
That seems to be the three.
Those are the main ones.
The three main ones.
Okay. Yeah.
If I'm going to simplify it, then sure. I think that Tinder is a bit more superficially constructed. Happen is more based on location, or at least that's what they're advertising. If you see someone out and about on the street that you find cute, then their advertising says that you can find them again on Happen if they are on Happen.
Someone passes you on the street.
Geolocation.
That's the use case. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. But at the same time, if you're living in a big city and you're living next to the bus drives by your apartment 75 times a day, those people also pair on Happen, and that kind of defeats the purpose. And then you have Hinge, which demands, as we talked about earlier, demands a bit more of each user to, answer some more questions about yourself, and you have to do a little more effort into creating your profile.
Fewer pictures there, and I think there's no free text field.
You do have to answer a lot of questions. No, I think there's no free text. Yeah.
I'm no expert, but when talking to people about Hinge, to me it seems like, at least, I mean, this is now just talking for Norway, it seems like it's more popular in, let's say, in Oslo, in the capital, than in other parts of the country.
Could be true.
And also it seems like you have fewer pictures, which is then supposed to be replaced by text and questions, but then you don't have free text field, and most people seem to answer questions with like a word, just because they want to validate the profile.
True.
It ends up being almost worse than Tinder.
True. Yeah.
In terms of
that makes sense.
Amount of information.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, I'm no expert here, but that's what I've heard.
Well, that makes sense. If you're answering those Hinge prompts with one word, that tells you a lot about that person.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And the intention of being there.
Yeah. They just want the access to the dating pool. So they're doing like the minimum.
The bare minimum.
To get access to the dating pool that Hinge provides. And Hinge is probably more popular in Oslo. I live in Oslo. There's a larger amount of single people, which means that the user base on Hinge is larger. If you have to choose one of them, maybe Hinge is a bit better. But again, that depends on what you want. Maybe on Tinder, there's a lot. Some people are more have a greater degree of dating fatigue. But it has also the largest user base. Worldwide and in Norway.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's been here. It's been there for 12 years.
Yeah, so it's like the OG app.
It's the OG app. Yeah, it has a lot of people on it. I remember the interface on Tinder and Hinge and Happen, and they're getting more and more similar because Tinder looks at Hinge and sees what works, and they kind of try and
they all converge.
They all converge. They try to steal whatever works. Yeah, exactly. So I think
that makes sense.
But I think, why not do all three?
I was going to say, because
maximize your portfolio.
Yeah. I mean, dip your toe in all the ponds. But it seems to me also that, or I'm getting the sense that a lot of people who are single today are just have a profile on most of the or most of the platforms rather, or dating apps. In the case there might have been earlier, where you sort of, okay, if you're into this, then you use this app. No, everyone is on every platform, so it doesn't really make any difference.
Yeah. It's a lot of work, maintaining a dating app. If you get a match, then you have to keep the conversation. And if you have, maybe you're talking to 3 matches on Tinder, 2 on Hinge, 1 on Happen. So suddenly
that's a full-time job.
It's a full-time job. You have 6 people you're talking to, and you have to balance what kind of inside jokes do I have with which person, who am I meeting on Saturday. Limit the amount of people you're talking to, and make a choice. Make a choice on who you're talking to, and try to get to know them, give them a chance. And then, because you'll find the answer faster if you kind of
focus a little bit.
If you focus on one person at a time, you'll find the answer a lot faster.
One thing we haven't touched on so far is sort of pay versus not pay. I mean, most of these apps have a premium subscription or gold or platinum, whatever they call it. But there's either you have it for free or you pay. What are your thoughts, reflections, intuitions on should people pay for the app? Would they get more out of it? Should they not pay? What makes sense?
Paying for dating apps, I think, could be a necessity, depending on your intention. Because as we talked about earlier, there are a lot more men on, let's say, Tinder than there are women. And remember that these dating apps, they're not there really to help you find love. They're there to make money. And their kind of key target audience is single men. I think it's between 30 and 38. Because they have the money to pay for dating apps, like the premium subscription modes and all that. They're also in that part of their life that if they haven't already settled down, then that's kind of the prime age. So that's kind of the key target audience, not just for Tinder, I think, but all the dating apps.
All the dating apps, yeah.
Tinder, you have something called gold membership. If you pay for that, you will get access to something called Boost, a way to kind of pay your way to be on top of the algorithm, showing your profile to more women for 30 minutes. So you're kind of above the stack. When a man opens Tinder, let's say he swipes through 40 profiles. And then, the bus comes and he goes on about his day. Women swipe less. They do a more conscious choice. They go through maybe 6, 7, and then they put the phone away. As a man, then you have to pay to be one of those 6, 7. Maybe if you start using Boost, where your profile is added to the top of the stack for 30 minutes, on Sundays between 7 and 8.
In the evening?
In the evening.
Okay.
That's the best way to do it.
And
now everyone will do it probably, but
well, what's the psychology?
So the psychology behind it is that it's Sunday. People are probably a bit hungover, probably a bit lovesick. They've already eaten dinner. They're doing their Sunday activity, which is probably watching a show between 7 and 8.
Wishing they were to watching the show.
Wishing to watching the show, not really paying attention to the show, being a bit on their phone, maybe swiping on, doing dual screen, being a bit on Tinder as they're watching Love Island, let's say. And then, boom, there's your profile.
Is there other features that one would unlock by paying that could be useful other than boosting? There's
one of the apps where you can write to someone without them having a match with you first. And then you have something called, it's something called super like.
Is that useful? Does that work?
Well, it depends. Then they know that you like them, but then this ties back to the desperation bit.
Yeah. I was going to say, is it a positive thing or is it like a signal that this guy is super desperate?
It has a negative connotation because you're super like someone. You really like him. And in the society that we have right now with, dating being as it is, it can come across as a bit desperate, that you're a bit too interested.
So all in all, people should actually not should not use it.
Yeah, should avoid, I think, using super likes. But I think boosting, having a better profile in general, is just a better way to go about it. Another thing that you get access to is you can change your location. Let's say you are going on vacation to London in a couple of weeks. And then with paying for a gold membership on Tinder, you can change your location to London. And then start to match with people there, setting up dates. That could be like an interesting way to use it. I think like 70 or 80% of people who use Tinder are men.
Oh, it's that much?
I think it's a lot of men on Tinder.
Okay.
Yeah. You're competing against a lot of other men, and women are also having dating fatigue. They're swiping through under 10 profiles maybe each time they go on Tinder. And then they're like, oh, so you have to be one of those 10.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could work.
Oh, makes sense. Let me switch it up a little bit and read you 2 quotes and get your reaction to this. Modern dating is basically learning all about someone until you're no longer attracted to them. Sometimes this takes one date, sometimes it takes years. And here's the other one. Modern dating isn't real. Both people are just playing pretend while waiting to see if they can do better.
Those are interesting quotes. The second one ties directly into situationships, because you're just waiting for something better to show up. You're kind of making a choice, but you're waiting.
Not really, yeah.
But you're not really. You're not investing as much into it. You don't want to show your true colors. There's a theory on the internet called the taxi cab theory.
Okay, yeah, tell me about it.
So the taxi cab theory is either you're the destination or you're the cab. So, and I think when you ask yourself, am I the destination or am I the cab? I think that your gut will give you an answer straight away. You should be with someone that really, that are committed to you and you're committed to them and you wanted to build something together. But that takes time.
But it's a very poignant way of putting it.
It is.
I really, I like that.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I think we're just being more afraid of showing who we really are and showing it too early, and being fearful of scaring someone off. I think that's a huge part of it. But that ties into trying to show who you are. And the second you do that, if you get rejected, then of course that hurts a lot more. The alternative is to not be your authentic self. And I think that's destructive for you and for the one you're with and for whatever you're trying to build.
It seems like in this society where there's so much superficialness, or people are being so superficial in so many dimensions, seems like one of the scary resources is being genuine and authenticity. So for the people who actually are able to do that, it will be so much more impactful than maybe they're aware of.
I think the older you get, the more you date with intention. I think when you're starting to date in your early 20s, you don't really maybe know who you are at the time.
And what you're looking for.
What kind of interests you have when it comes to love, what you need. But as you grow older, I think you're dating more and more with attention. Becoming interested in who you are and what you like. That's not age specific. But I think the earlier you become interested in that, the more you take conscious choices. Why not be a bit more conscious about it?
As with other things in life as well.
Exactly.
Let's visit some of these new terms. One of them is incels. And for people listening who may not know what that is, it's mostly men who believe that they are unable to find sexual or romantic partners despite wanting to. They often attribute their single status to societal, biological, or personal reasons, like not being attractive enough, or women having too many choices due to social changes. One of the beliefs is that the marketplace, sexual marketplace, is unfair. Only a small percentage of the men get most of the attention from women. And some of these incels subscribe to this black pill mentality, which is suggesting that looks and genetics are destiny, and no amount of self-improvement and changes can change their romantic fate. They're sort of doomed to whatever shelf in life they've been attributed to. And what's interesting is that statistics show that the online incel community have been growing at a rate of 50% per year, with over 40,000 new posts on incel-related forums per month. Another interesting statistic is that men who are between 18 and 30 reporting that they had no sex in the past year in 2002 was 10%. In 2023, the number was 30%, so a threefold increase in 20 years. What role does dating apps and current dating culture play in this development, do you think?
Those are very interesting numbers. Those numbers are
staggering.
It's staggering. It's just astonishing. I don't think dating apps per se are to blame for it. I think dating apps have more shown a light on a bigger issue, which is trying to figure out who you are in this world and what you want. No matter how much self-improvement I do, no one wants to love me and choose me. I think that's kind of that's victimizing yourself. I think,
for sure.
Isn't it better that women are choosing partners because they want to be with them rather than they have to be with them to live a complete life? Because it's not that many years ago, women had to be married to have certain rights. Women have more rights today, and I think there's more. Of course, there's a long way to go still, but I think we are becoming more and more equal, men and women. Before, women had to be with men in order to, get access to different parts of society. Luckily, they don't have to do that anymore. But they still choose partners. They still choose men, but they choose men that they want to be with. And I don't think that if men are victimizing themselves by saying that no one wants to be with me, no matter how much I work out, or how many self-improvement books I read, and nobody wants to be with me. I don't think the problem is that you're not reading enough self-improvement books or not working out enough or whatever the case might be. I think it's the whole mindset. It's hard to find love. It is. It's not supposed to be easy, because if it was that easy, it wouldn't be worth much. It wouldn't be as special as it is. I think that the whole incel culture might spring out from a place that, of course, it might feel unfair when you see friends of yours getting into relationships, having success, establishing families and stuff, and you're still single. Of course, that feels unfair. At the same time, you can't blame other people for it. There's so much you can take responsibility for yourself. If you're not happy with the situation that you have in life right now, then there are many things that you can do. Getting more friends. I think a lot of incels are there's an echo chamber of negative emotions and negative reflections. I think that's a part of the problem as well. They're not getting their opinions really challenged. And
the community itself could just reinforce the problem, basically.
Yeah.
They're victimizing themselves. They're listening to other people victimizing themselves. It becomes an echo chamber. And they're basically, they're all worse for it.
Yeah.
Being in that community is just making it worse for everyone in it.
It feels nice to be a victim, but if you want to be a victim, then again, you have to accept that it's hopeless. And it's you can't have one without the other. I think there are things that you can do, and one of them is to step out of that, those discussion forums, and try to get your opinions challenged, but get them challenged by people that want your best. You have to trust the other person if you want to get your opinions challenged. You have to have a discourse. You have to have a discussion. I think it's sad that the incel culture has risen that much. It's a symptom that we're growing more and more apart, and more people are, falling into those echo chambers. But I think
potentially isolating themselves,
which I think is sad. It shouldn't be like that. I agree, but I don't think the solution is to victimize yourself or blaming others. I think if you're that into, if you have that many theories about society is that way it is and stuff, then, use that energy to, meet up with other people. Improve yourself together with other people. Because that, I think, as we talked about earlier, there are only some parts of you can only be challenged if you have a close relationship with someone. It doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. You can be friends with someone of the same sex or the other sex, but you have to challenge yourself. And I think that's a way out of it. But it's a global issue.
Yeah, it definitely is. And let me, before we round up this topic, let me just introduce a few more of these pills which is part of all this new terminology. There's also something called red pill, which is often associated with men's rights, where one wakes up to perceived systemic bias against men, but still, here's the difference, still believes in the possibility of change through knowledge or action. So feel it's hopeless, they feel the system is rigged against them, but they think it's possible to change it. And then there's another one, which is blue pill. So you have black pill, red pill, and blue pill. And the blue pill represents either living in ignorance or living with an optimistic view of relationships in society where personal effort can lead to success. So you have sort of the two negative ones, the black and the red pill, and then the blue one is more optimistic or potentially viewed from the other's perspective as being naive. And now the statistics, as we've looked at, would seem to indicate that the current dating culture, especially towards men, leads them towards this black and red pill mentality. That seems to be happening since there've been less of it in the past. I would be curious to know, like, why do you think that is, and how can we course correct? So we spoke about like maybe bringing more people, or should ideally have more people thinking in a blue pill fashion. You can change yourself, you can get out of this. But has maybe dating apps or the new dating culture exacerbated this in some way? Or is it just internet forums that people come together and they sort of congregate and they create echo chambers and it reinforces itself because of that?
Oh, it's such an interesting question. Dating has become more available. As we talked about earlier, it's easier to find and go on a date than it's to find love. You know, back in the day, I think the men that had success on, going out in the town was the ones that had the guts to go up to women and start talking to them and ask them to dance and stuff. That's kind of like the cultural thing. That's been the same way throughout the ages, having the guts to do that. And that's still scary. It's still scary if you go up to strangers out in the town. Dating apps has kind of removed that and made it easier to find the dates. But don't think...
So in that way, level the playing field a little bit?
Level the playing field a little bit, but it's still hard. It's still about, connection. There are different rules. There are, groups of guys where they before, was out and about on town on a Saturday night, flirting and, going out and dancing and stuff with girls. And now they're just sitting around the table, talking, drinking beer, and swiping on their apps on Saturday night. So it kind of like, it has done something with, we're kind of diving more into our phones, and we haven't really seen the value of raising our heads and looking other people in the eye when we're out and about. It doesn't have to be on a Saturday night. It could be on the store or on the street or whatever. But I think that's always been valuable. What's it like trying to find love? But it's kind of industrialized it a bit more, because you're sitting on the conveyor belt, wiping, trying to find love. Whereas before it was more like an organic experience. You might have seen someone in the store or out and about somewhere, or on a vacation or whatever, or through friends or colleagues or whatever.
Personally, it feels more natural. I miss that part of society more with the face-to-face interaction, the natural sort of, going up to someone that you find interesting or fascinating and having a chat. And what I feel has changed a little bit, because now we're all on the apps. It's also that sometimes people will be surprised, or sometimes even negatively surprised, if you approach them, because it's so rare. So there will be, this is not how it's supposed to go. We're supposed to go through all these steps in the apps and whatnot. So they're like, wow, what the hell? I don't know you. Why are you coming to me? That sort of thing, which is, definitely a negative.
We're not used to being
in
picked
society.
Up.
Yeah, we're not used to
flirted.
picked up, and we're not used to flirting anymore.
Isn't that sad?
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. Such a sad development.
It is. We've lost the ability to, the knowledge to walk up to someone and flirt. I think I read somewhere that I think it's 80 or 90% of new relationships are formed through dating apps. The rest is, through friends or coworkers or organically on the street. But that's 90%. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and if you don't feel like you're, handling Tinder or handling this new reality, You don't really feel that you have the skills to talk to someone on the street, and you don't feel you have the skills to, land the date on Tinder. Of course, that's frustrating. So I can understand people falling into black pills and red pills. I think we're on our way to a much better place right now, because more and more people are seeing the value of actually being authentic, being vulnerable, and seeing that that's actually being met. Because when you're being vulnerable with someone, showing your authentic self, if they're not meeting you on that, if they're rejecting you based on you being vulnerable or feeling that you're being authentic, if they're rejecting you based on that, that tells you everything you need about that match.
That's a great filter, basically.
It's a great filter. It's the best filter you have. It's being authentic, being vulnerable, being yourself. If you manage to do that in your interactions with other people, if they reject you based on that, that's not your people. That's not for you. And that's fine. That's totally fine. But that means being rejected. And that hurts. Do people fall into these pills because they've been rejected so much? As we talked about, Gen Z and millennials, most rejected generations in history. It's no wonder. But being rejected is part of finding love. But if you're rejected based on who you are and they're being authentic selves, that hurts a lot more. I agree. But you at least have confidence and the courage to meet the world as your authentic self.
Yeah, and if you match, it's real. If you match otherwise, then who knows?
Exactly.
Speaking about sort of being able to manage or handle, I would say, rejections and difficult times in life, a lot of people seem to feel anxiety today, which can be further exacerbated, as we're talking about, the feeling of not succeeding in the dating game or not finding someone, or the feeling of loneliness. Some people talk about like a loneliness epidemic, or there's more of that than previously. I know that you've been publicly open about some of your experiences with anxiety and angst in the past. And I would be curious if you could talk to us about anxiety and dating and the path out of this as individuals and as society. Is the path vulnerability, or is it more complex?
I think vulnerability is a huge part of it. But in order to be vulnerable, there is a ladder you have to climb. And that ladder consists of becoming comfortable with who you are and knowing that you're not alone. There's a lot of people that have anxiety when it comes to dating, or have anxiety and angst in general. We'll come back to the society part of it, but I think as an individual, I think it's important to first and foremost talk about it, and talk about it with someone around you that you feel that you can confide in and that you feel wants the best for you. And that could be a close friend, that could be a family member, or even a colleague, or it could be a professional therapist. That could also work. But I do think the most important thing is to talk about it. Because as you're talking about it, you're getting to, it's not so much about getting advice, but it's more about talking about it in a way that kind of helps you construct what is it in me that needs attention. So, of course, if you have anxiety, and you can only speak from my own experience, but then it's usually because there's some part of you that you haven't really given that much love and attention to, and it kind of craves your attention and craves being comforted. For instance, some that experience social anxiety, they're really afraid of what other people think of them. And the most common advice those people get is, I don't care, just don't care about what other people think.
It's giving the end point, perhaps, than the starting point.
It's giving the end point, exactly. But in order to get there where you don't care about what other people think, you have to accept a lot of things inside you. Yeah. I'm like this, I do this in these situations, but that's okay. And kind of give yourself the comfort that you need, not look to others to be validated or getting comfort. I think that's a huge part of it. And then giving love and attention to those sides of yourself. But in order to do that, you have to find out which parts of yourself that you need to give love and attention to. You can either do that by self-reflecting, or in my case, talking about it with a professional therapist was hugely helpful for me in order to get to know myself and I get to accept those parts of myself.
Mm-hmm.
When that comes, how that kind of translates into the dating scene is that you're afraid to be vulnerable. Maybe you're a bit of a people pleaser because you don't want to be rejected, or you're afraid of what they might think of you, or you just want to be liked. But if you like yourself first and accept who you are and give yourself the comfort and attention that you're seeking from others to give you, then anxiety doesn't really go away, but it nurtures it in a way that it kind of dampens it. And I think that's a huge part of it, just dating yourself, so to speak. I write about this in the book as well. There's one person that you're going to be with together for the rest of your life, and that's you. And being comfortable with who you are and giving yourself the love and the warmth that you need, that starts with you. And I think if you start, of course, it's natural to seek that from others, but you have to give it to yourself as well. How do we handle this as a society? I think being more open to that people are wired together in different ways. I think that's a huge part of it. Even though someone experiences this situation in a certain way, doesn't mean that you have to do it in experience in the exact same way. As a society, a lot of let's say the ADHD epidemic, where there's a lot of people that feel they have ADHD and getting, not treated or kind of research if they have it or not. I think that's also about, of course, there's a lot of people that have it, and that's our own diagnosis, but I also think that it stems maybe from a place that we don't really accept certain parts of ourselves, or that we're procrastinating, or that this type of situation makes me scared. I was really nervous every time I was going to hold a presentation at work. I was so nervous. I had a lot of anxiety attached to that, and that was because I didn't accept that I was nervous. I didn't allow myself to be nervous in a situation that's perfectly normal to be nervous in. But I didn't. I could understand that others could be nervous, but I wasn't going to be nervous, and I didn't give myself the permission to do that. Yeah. So that kind of gave me a lot of anxiety around, performing socially in front of others. But the second I started to kind of accept that, well, of course I'm nervous. I'm a human being. I have a whole range of emotions. And accepting the emotions, that's a huge part of it. So as a society, learning that we as individuals can accept ourselves in a greater degree and kind of take away the notion that we have to be a certain ideal type of human being. That's not, no one is.
Allow yourself to be human, yeah.
Allow yourself to be human. Allow yourself to have a human experience.
Yeah, and
everyone is living this life for the first time. We're trying as best we can.
Yeah, everyone's winging it.
Everyone's winging it, and kind of accept that. I think that's a huge part of it. And then if we can kind of pivot our society to, and I believe that we are, in a way that this is more and more accepted. Nobody's perfect.
And definitely things like presenting in front of a crowd is perhaps, or not just perhaps, I think it's the most common fear that people have. And Seinfeld even have a great bit on this, which is that people are more afraid to give the talk in a funeral than being in the casket themselves, which is, death is number two. That is crazy.
It is insane. It makes it so funny and sad. There is a timeline that you feel you have to fulfill in some way. So you should get your master's degree before you're 26, and you should have at least 1 or 2 romantic relationships in that time. And then you're 30, then you should have maybe, you should have a real relationship. And then you're 35, you should have maybe some kids. And then, the white picket fence, the dog, the car, and you're 40. Station wagon, 40, 45, 50. There's this timeline for some reason exists. That isn't valid anymore. That timeline, for some reason, that we're all grown up with, it looks different for everyone, but that doesn't exist anymore. There's a different timeline. You get to decide when you're doing certain things. Of course, there's the biological clock. If you're a woman that wants to have kids, of course, that's unfair. That's a physical thing that you have to consider up in all this. That being said, there is a timeline. If you want to change career when you're 40, do that. If you want to do, take another master when you're 50, do that. If you don't want to know what you want to do when you're 25, that's totally fine. There's this pressure that society puts on us, and that we as a culture puts on us. And I think that as a society, if we can kind of lessen that pressure, I think it would alleviate a lot of mental health issues, like more acceptance around that. It would make like trying to find love and dating a bit more, not easier, but it would be not as stressful.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you wouldn't have 10 matches on your phone when you're on the 11th, trying to find some flaw that that validates your reason to, okay, not this person, maybe the next one. Kind of taking down the pace a bit.
Yeah. At least there's less and less stigma in society, so it seems like we're moving in the right direction and in some dimension.
We are definitely. I think the mental health stigma is luckily declining a lot, and that's a good thing.
I just want to throw out one more of these new terms and get your thoughts on it. There's something that I've come across that's called cuffing season. And that's an expression for having a short relationship during winter months.
Yes.
This term describes the period where especially people who live in colder climates like us in Norway seek out a romantic or sexual partner to cuff or keep close during the cold, less social months.
Totally a thing.
And the idea is to have someone to cuddle with, share warmth with, reduce feelings of loneliness throughout the winter. And with the relationship potentially ending once the weather gets warmer. And one would think that these kind of relationships would be more easily enabled through dating apps and through this dating scene that we're part of, so maybe no wonder that they are more frequent now. But is this a positive trend? And what are your thoughts on cuffing?
Well, you do have situationships, and that's been around for a while, even though the term situationship was coined recently. Cuffing season is, some use it for a short-term relationship, but again, I think especially here in colder climates, cuffing season is more. This is the main season, the best season to find a relationship, because
people are more looking.
Yeah, people are more looking because when spring comes along, naturally there's sun. You feel more. You go outside more. You flirt more. That's part of the whole reproductive cycle thing about the human beings. That's kind of how we're in tune with nature.
Yeah.
And when winter, when autumn and winter comes, we want to go into the den and we want to sleep it
hibernate.
off. We want to hibernate, preferably with someone. I don't think it's about the short-term thing. I think it's a better season to find someone because then people are actually taking it seriously. It might end up being a short-term relationship, but I think it's a better
a single peak season.
A single peak season.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that because during being single when it's spring and summer, great. You meet a lot of people and you're having a good time. But if you seriously want a relationship, I think autumn and winter are the best times because then people are, if you're first going on a date around then, and I think people are taking it way more seriously because people are looking for someone. Well, it could be short-term, but preferably long-term. But it is a thing. It is definitely a thing. But I think it's more positive than negative.
I want to touch on yet another one of these terms. And there's so many, apparently. And all of this is, can be quite difficult to navigate. And there's this term, we touched on it a little bit earlier in the conversation, perhaps. But there's a term called monk mode. And it's a term that describes a period of intense personal focus and discipline, where one emulates the lifestyle of a monk in order to achieve some specific goals. And that could be typically removing the distractions, time-consuming distractions like social media. It could be removing dating, other time-consuming activities to concentrate solely on self-improvement, productivity, or a particular project. Typically, people will take on habits like minimalism, meditation, more strict routines to focus. The idea is to live with intent and cutting out all these indulgences that seem unproductive or counter to professional or personal growth. And this term have apparently gained a lot of popularity among entrepreneurs, creatives, and those seeking to maximize efficiency and self-awareness. We're seeing this massive decline in replenishing rates. In a lot of especially in Western countries, we see birth rates are dropping. Fewer and fewer people are having children, and those who are having fewer children. So we're basically heading towards a population collapse. To what degree do you think that all of this can be ascribed to things like monk mode that we talked about, things like incels that we talked about, cuffing, situationships, and all these consequences of modern day dating?
Monk mode doesn't sound necessarily negative, so to speak. Because there's a lot of distractions, more distractions today than there ever was. And being able to cut all that off in order to pursue a project or a goal, that could be positive, you know. But again,
it definitely could be positive.
Of course, yeah. But again, everything to a certain degree. A lot of people have more commitment issues. It's scarier to commit to someone, scarier to take a choice, and we want to maximize our life even more in the 20s and 30s. There's a lot more opportunities. We want to travel. We want to do the master's degree. We want to do the career thing. We want to we want to do the.
We want to achieve more before having the baby.
Exactly, yeah. Because we have a lot more opportunities than our parents had. So we want to maximize. And when we were raised, our parents told us, "You can do whatever you want to be. You can do whatever you want. Just go for it. Go for your dreams." Such a pressure. No wonder we have like mental health issues. But I think
it's quite different than leaving home at 14 to become a sailor.
Exactly. Yeah, and that was kind of the career.
Or working at the farm.
Exactly. That was the career path you had available to you. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3 other options, but now you have all the options. So you want to maximize everything, and I think that's going to be an even bigger issue. The younger generations were then growing up, because now they're optimizing their lives when they're like 16, 17.
Starting earlier and
earlier. Yeah. That's not going to go away. We're going to have fatigue in all different ways and forms. And people are getting more and more burnt out earlier. We have so many options. And, having a child is something that seems so permanent, which it is. We want to postpone that as long as we can. And that means fewer babies and a declining birth rate. We're postponing the choice because it's a commitment. And as a society, we have...
Postponing all commitments.
We're postponing all commitments. We want to just do everything all the time. And then all of a sudden, it might be too late.
One of the downsides of this vast amount of choices.
It is. Yeah. And then again, we're not, as human beings, we're not wired to have too many choices. Because if we do, we want to do it all, or we don't do anything. And then we kind of, the fatigue kicks in. But I think just make a choice. Or if it doesn't work out, try another. But the important thing is to make a choice, not do all the things at once.
We spoke a little bit about ghosting earlier and what ghosting means. And just staying with that topic or that term a little bit, I think most people feel that it's a little bit immature, disrespectful, and hurtful way to end a relationship or interaction, even though we see it more frequently than in the past. It doesn't sort of legitimize it in any way. I'm wondering what is causing us to act less mature and humane in our social interactions, and are our fear of confrontations leading us to a colder and more robotic society? And is this spawning from, among other things, like internet society and dating apps and everything is like we're hiding behind the screen rather than being face-to-face and having those real connections? What are your thoughts?
I think ghosting has become an issue because it takes so much energy out of us to reject someone, or to go through the motions of, well, actually I don't know, think it's, or we might not work out, but I like you as a person, and then they become angry, and you don't want to deal with all that because you're meeting so many people all the time, and then it's demanding to reject someone, and then ghosting kind of, it's just, it's awkward then and there, but you kind of you remove the match, and then it's like there's no consequence.
Part of the fatigue, basically.
It's part of the fatigue.
Okay.
So it's kind of a way to conserve your energy.
It makes a little bit more sense when you put it this way, because one way to think about it could be that we have this moral decline We spoke about values a little bit earlier, and it feels like we have not as solid value foundation as we used to have, and that we're less focused on morale or what would be a good way to treat other people. But looking at it through the lens of conserving energy is somehow makes more sense.
I think that most people in general are trying to do good, but that demands a lot of energy. If you wanted to do good all the time, you would never ghost someone. You would always sit them down, and like, I'm very sorry, here are my reasons, how do you feel? That takes a lot of energy. And then doing that once in a while, of course, that kind of helps you being the person that you want to be. But if you feel like you have to reject people all the time or often, and that's might be the case because how dating apps have constructed dating right now, that demands a lot of energy and attention, and that drains you, and you want to keep your energy to do other things than dating as well. And I think that I think all of us are trying their best, but we're also trying to protect ourselves to various degrees. So if you're dating someone and you feel that you're being ghosted, you can't do anything with being ghosted, but you can be part of the solution. And I think part of the solution is to stop ghosting people and give them an answer. Or it might not be a well thought out answer, but it could be something. If you've gone on dates with someone, just say, hey, really enjoyed our time together. I'm not really feeling it. I'm sorry, but I wish you the best. Of course, it sucks to be the one that's rejecting people, but then at least you're part of the solution.
The amount of time that you spend to write that one sentence or those few words is not that much. So, I mean, in terms of consuming energy, it's not going to consume that much. And I think it means a lot for the other party to get that closure. Closure means a lot.
It does. But there's an emotional cost for you to write that message because you don't inherently want to hurt another person. You are potentially hurting them.
No, you could be hurting them more by not, because they could be silently waiting on the other end, hoping for something that's never going to happen.
And here's the thing to keep in mind. You don't have the responsibility for their emotions and their reactions. You only have responsibility for your own emotions and your own reactions. So by writing that message, you're taking responsibility for your emotions, that you're not feeling it with this person. You're taking responsibility for that, and you're informing that person of that. How they choose to react to that message has nothing to do with you. That's not a reflection of who you are.
Yeah, as long as you give the message in a respectful manner. Or try to give it in a respectful manner.
You don't have to be callous about it. Be respectful, do it in a polite way. And if they choose to react negatively on that, that doesn't reflect back on you. So that kind of takes away a lot of the energy or responsibility one might feel for the other person.
That goes along with it,
That's part of dating. And I think that if you don't want to accept that part of dating, then I think you're part of the problem.
Rather than the solution.
And the part of the problem that why dating has evolved or devolved.
Devolved, rather, that's
until the point that we have now. So I think start by setting an example for others. And I think over time, everybody has a responsibility for this. But over time, I think that would make dating culture a bit more positive, a bit more encouraging.
It really links back to this old saying, like, be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It sounds maybe a bit naive. You might not be able to give them the closure they need, but at least you're giving them something rather than just deleting the match and then just going about your life. Because that's way more hurtful for us and as a society as a whole, I think.
Absolutely. Well, what's next for you in terms of romantic relationships and as an author?
I'm very lucky. I met my girlfriend on Tinder. I'm actually very in love right now. So that's been a huge blast. I'm very glad for that.
Wonderful.
So
you live together or?
Not yet. Yeah.
How old is the relationship?
We met actually on Tinder last year. And we took a break in January, and then we met again randomly on a festival this summer.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then we started, and then both of us made a choice.
Yeah.
And now we're committed. So that feels really nice.
All right. Fantastic.
And I think that following my own advice from the book has been a huge part of it. Yeah, being vulnerable, making a choice, building something together, searching for those values that I find very important. That's been a huge part of it. In terms of the next project, right now I'm just enjoying the positive reactions that the book has provided me with.
Yeah.
And meeting people such as you, being able to discuss this topic, and my sincere hope is that this book could be someone's light in the dark, or someone's motivation, or be a sort of inspiration for someone that finds dating really hard or has lost kind of hope, to kind of tell them that it's not hopeless. There are things that we can do, but this is my contribution to dating culture as it is right now. And I'm hoping this will maybe make it a little bit better for some people. If I can achieve that, that's great.
Wonderful. Sounds like a great intent with the project, and I wish you all the best moving forwards, both with the book and your relationship. It's been a pleasure.
You do. Thank you so much.
How can people reach out to you, and where can they find you online? And
I do have an Instagram, which is kind of our main source of contact.
Yeah.
It's called Hellsve, HELLSVE.
Yeah.
It's an open profile. And if you buy the book, you can also find my Instagram handle there. If you end up reading the book, I would love to hear what people think about it. That would be great. And I do love talking about this topic. So if anyone has any questions or want to talk about something, feel free to reach out.
All right, excellent. We'll leave the Instagram handle in the show notes as well. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
If you appreciated that, then click here for more content like this. Go on, click it. And don't forget to subscribe. Be well.